Chapter 8 The Arrival at Lazoo. One autumn evening in the year 1877, a train from Alençon drew up at the station of Lazoo. A train was soon seen jolting over the ill-paved streets, passing by the old Norman houses, the picturesque medieval appearance of which gives the town a poetic touch in striking contrast to the black smoke rising from the tall factory chimneys. The cab stopped at the Place Saint-Pierre, near the ancient cathedral of the same name. A few inquisitive heads appeared at the windows, and some loiterers stood still to look at the newcomers. The first to alight was a man about 50. A little girl jumped out after him and put her hand confidingly in his. A tall, brown-haired girl came next, followed by another, small and frail, and two younger children. They formed a charming group, but the sadness visible on all the young faces, together with their deep mourning, made the passers-by look at them sympathetically and say to one another, "Poor children, they have probably just lost their mother." The door of the house before which this interesting family had alighted now opened, and two little girls rushed out, followed more sedately by their parents. For a few moments nothing was to be heard but delighted exclamations from the children, and the more sober greetings of their elders. You will easily have recognized the family I have described. The tall white-haired gentleman is Monsieur Martin, the father of Thérèse, but perhaps you will like to have a few more details about the children. Marie, the eldest, was then in her 18th year. Hers was a sunny and affectionate nature. She was tenderly devoted to her sisters, who loved her dearly in return. Her father called her his diamond, because she was always sparkling with fun and originality. Pauline, aged 16, had just left school. She was shy and gentle, and her father's name for her was Precious Pearl, but beneath her sweetness and her retiring ways was hidden remarkable force of will and a judgment unusually well balanced. Marie, who since her mother's death had become mistress of the house, although herself possessing rare gifts of mind and heart, often had recourse to Pauline's advice in domestic affairs. After Pauline came Léonie, aged 13. She too was gentle and retiring, her loving nature prompting her to constant unselfishness and self-effacement. Céline was just 18 and somewhat shy, though her eyes danced with mischief, and she was full of life and spirits. Thérèse, the little fair-haired queen, was 5. She won all hearts by her charming ways and her bright smile. The 4 that came out to welcome the newcomers were Monsieur Guérin, brother-in-law of Monsieur Martin, his wife, and their 2 little daughters. Jean, the elder, a very intelligent child, was about the same age as Céline. Dark-eyed Marie, 2 years older than Thérèse, was a great rogue and something of a tomboy. This was the family which was henceforward to play so large a part in the life of Thérèse. Chapter 9 Les Buissonnets. It was late in the evening when the travelers arrived, and the children were so tired that they were almost dropping asleep. As soon as supper was over, therefore, Marie and Pauline took their little sisters up to bed. Alone with his brother and sister-in-law, Monsieur Martin began to discuss with them his plans for the future. The fortune which he had made in his business at Alençon was sufficient to allow him to live henceforward on his income, and to devote himself entirely to the education of his children. He relied on the kindness and affection of Madame Guérin to guide his elder girls in their duties as little mothers and mistresses of the new home in Lazoo. Early the next day, our party set out for Les Buissonnets. After crossing the public park, they were soon in the narrow lane leading to the house where Thérèse was to pass her happy sheltered childhood. The elder girls looked sadly at the home where they would never see their dearly loved mother. But Thérèse was delighted with everything. The house itself was bright and sunny, and to add to its charms there was a large belvedere with carved woodwork and stained glass windows, commanding on all sides a beautiful view over hills and meadows. In front of the house was a flower garden with lawns and trees, and behind, a big kitchen garden. It all seemed wonderful to the imagination of a child of 5. They soon settled down in this their new home. Marie spared no pains to make her father happy, while Pauline busied herself with the little ones confided to her care. This was a charge that seemed to have been left to her by her mother, who on her deathbed had taken Pauline's hand and kissed it reverently, as if to appoint her spiritual mother of her sisters. Pauline took upon herself the entire care and education of Thérèse, who was still too young to go to school. Under so devoted a teacher, the child soon learned to read and write, and the first word she could read was heaven. Every day, when lessons were over, the little queen went up to the belvedere, the usual quarters of her father, whom she called her king. She would climb onto his knee and proudly show him her marks, which were always good. Sometimes she would find him in the garden and take him for a walk, skipping along gaily at his side. If she left him for a moment, it was only to make up strange drinks from the bark of trees. When these wines turned out a pretty color, she would bring them to her father in a doll's cup. He would pretend to drink the odd mixture and declare it delicious. Another favorite occupation of Thérèse was to make altars of moss in a hollow of the garden wall. When they were ready, her father had to come and look at them and go into raptures over their beauty. To encourage her to work diligently at her lessons, a great celebration was held every year at Les Buissonets for the distribution of prizes. Though Thérèse was the only competitor, strict justice was observed, and she only obtained the rewards she had really deserved. A number of friends were invited to see a play acted by the children, the conservatory being hung with draperies for the occasion. But before the play began, the little queen made her entry on the stage, and her father, seated in the place of honor, solemnly presented her with her prizes. This ceremony always suggested that the childish imagination of Thérèse, the day of judgment, when only the wicked need have any fear, while those who all their lives have worked for God will be generously rewarded.